Hey everybody, I wanted to jump on and talk just briefly about learning automation and how important learning automation is to your learning practice. So learning automation is not just an e-learning course, right? It's a great e-learning course is a great beginning, but it's not the full learning automation. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today because it's so important when you're thinking about your learning experience to think about learning automation. And I'm going to talk today about why that's important. But first I want to define what learning automation is. Learning automation is automating a learning experience for the learner to benefit them so they are prepared for the learning that you're going to be presenting, that they have the learning event, right, which is the e-learning in this case when we're talking about learning automation, and there's follow-up or post-learning that's happening and all of it is automated. So a lot of you may be familiar with digital marketing. Right? So when you are, when you go into a store or you follow an influencer in your industry, what happens a lot of times is they want you to subscribe to something, right? So you click on their lead magnet, you click on their deal, and what happens is that they will start sending you communications, right? They call them nurture sequences. And so when you first enter their world, what they'll do is they'll welcome you to their environment. They'll let you know who they are. They'll give you a little bit of value, right? So that's exactly the same thing when you're thinking about a learning experience. How do you bring that learner into the experience so they're ready, they're prepared, right? They have a little bit of nurturing, they have a little bit of welcome. Whether it's an onboarding sequence, whether it's introducing them to a new concept, maybe you're working on some cultural training or on-the-job training or just anything that is going to influence, how they need to produce some results on their job, right? If you want them to change performance and behavior, starting with that nurture sequence is super important, that nurture welcome sequence, right? So learning automation starts with that. They're opting in to say, yes, I'm interested in this course, or I'm signing up for this course. And so what happens is you can start communicating with them right away. You can start getting them excited and engaged and get them ready for the learning by putting in, it could be email, it could be, if you have Yammer, you could be sending out some Yammer messages, you could be using chat bots, you can be using messenger bots, you can be using all sorts of different things to communicate with your learners to welcome them or nurture them so they're ready for the training. And then you're going to give them the actual automated training event, right? So whatever that automated training event looks like, you're going to give that to them. It could be an e-learning, it could be an automated webinar, it could be all sorts of other things, but really the main learning event, right? So how do you automate that, and what does that look like, right? A lot of the times that's the e-learning, and so people tend to be more familiar with that at this point. And then what happens is there's a period of time where they've taken that learning event and they need to go back and apply it on their job. And so those are follow-up sequences. Follow-up sequences, again, could be email, it could be messenger bots, it could be some other type of communication that you're sending out on an automated sequence. So most of the time people do 90 days, some do 180 days, some do 365 days, right? So if you think about that, and you think about setting up that whole sequence and you don't automate it, that's a lot of work, right? Because what you're doing is you're saying somebody's coming in and selecting the training, and then you're going to send them manual emails to get them prepared. You're going to send them manual emails about the training that they should be doing, and then manual emails to follow up. That's a ton of work, right? So as a learning leader, one of the things that you need to think about when you're running your learning business is how do you do more with less? And a great way to do this is through learning automation, right? So what you're doing is you're setting up your learner's journey, you're setting up that whole experience that they're going to have, and then you're automating it so it's happening automatically. It's happening without yours or your team's intervention, which is a much more powerful and efficient way to run your learning practice. So if you think about right now, like maybe a classroom training that you're doing, how much effort and work goes into the prep, the training itself, and then the follow-up. There is a lot of manual stuff happening there. If you were to automate certain parts of it, it would be a huge game changer, and not only how many resources you needed, the efficiency and time people are putting into it, and to be honest, the learner's experience, right? Learners want to have what they want to have at the time that they want to have it, right? They want to have it on demand. And so when you're thinking about setting up training, how do you automate as much of it as possible, and save the real life conversation, the interaction for the points that really matter, right? So a lot of times, like, you can do direct to camera, right? Like, say if you want to create a specific video, a personalized video for someone, you can just jump on your phone now and do that, right? Like, I'm creating a personalized message for you so I can teach you this concept. It's exactly the same way. We don't need to have, a big formal studio. We don't need to have all of that stuff anymore. People have an appetite for getting things on demand when they want them, and of course on their phones or on their iPads or wherever they're consuming things in the workplace, right? All right, so as a learning leader, that's really your advantage, right? Like, that is your strategic advantage, is the more you can automate, the more systems and process that you can create that take repetitive tasks that you're doing or your team is doing, and putting those on autopilot. It will be a huge game changer for you, right? Also, you think about the benefit for the learners. Your learners want to have things given to them that's dripped out, right? That's close to their workflow, that are shorter little nuggets of information or key points that they can take and apply right away to their job. So often, you think about it, like, people have a very short attention span, right? So if you're able to drip things out to people in a way that they can access when they have the mental capacity to deal with it, or maybe they're driving in their car and they want to just listen to kind of the points of the day or whatever, right? Like, they can consume it on their time, which means that they're able to bring it in and internalize it more than when you're just pushing it out to them and you're giving it to them when it's convenient for you. So learners are expecting that. If you, think about yourself, right? You think about what you're doing on Facebook or what you're doing on LinkedIn and where you're looking at those things, and you're going through the news feed and you're looking for things that are interesting. You click on them, you watch them, then you move on. That is so much of our mentality now in terms of how people are learning and consuming information and consuming content, that by preloading what you're giving them and then post-loading it in the follow-up sequence, it really gives them that holistic experience that the learners want and that the learners are asking for. And so the more you can make learning similar to what they're doing in their job or even in their life, the more you're going to be able to get that behavior and performance change that you're looking for, because it becomes something that becomes valuable to them. So thinking about your learner in learning automation is super critical. The third sort of audience for learning automation are your business leaders, right? Like, you think about if you were able to show a direct return on investment for what you've been creating and how it's more efficient and gets out to a broader group and is something that makes a huge difference to the learners and their ability to apply what you're teaching to their job. Business leaders see that because it's going to directly impact the growth of the organization, which is critical. And so your business leaders are going to love this because you're really showing that you're taking innovation, you're taking new concepts, you're taking some of the things that are already existing in the organization and applying them for learning. You think about marketing automation, I guarantee that your marketing department in your company has some type of marketing automation that you could leverage and use for learning internally within your employees, or better yet, using with your customers. Customers are used to getting marketing automation on your products and services. Why not on the learning that you're providing for them? Talk about a game changer. This is going to be critical for you to really gain traction and be seen as a leader in your organization, be seen as a profit center and not a cost center, right? Like, all of these things are going to help you innovate and really take your learning practice to the next level. All right, so how do we do this? I want to give you some practical tips to get started. The very first thing that you need to do is map out your learner's journey for either the course that you're creating or the curriculum or whatever it works for you, right? Like, if you have a whole onboarding program, You need to know what happens when that person walks in the door to the time that they're officially onboarded, whatever that means, right? So we take where they are currently and we look at their future state, right? What's that result that you want them to get? And then we map out that journey. And part of that journey is the communication, the pre-training, the training, and the post-training, right? So we want to make sure that we cover all of that. All right, then the next thing that we have is I want you to identify all of the sort of repetitive communication that you're doing today. Because I guarantee there are emails that you send out on a regular basis that you are either retyping each and every time and you're sending them out individually, or maybe you have a template, but you still have to push it out manually. So start identifying those and come up with a list of those. Those are really, really fast ways to start automating. So you're looking at what do you currently have. And then I want you to go to the actual training that you have created or that you are going to be creating. And how can you automate different pieces of the activities or lessons or reviews, or sort of just taking it to that next level, right? Like what's a way that while they're in the experience or right after the experience, you can enhance what they're doing. So say, for example, you have a video in your course, and it has a bit of a call to action on what you've asked other people in the organization to do, and so they're showing that in the video. A very quick call to action could be, okay, now you guys go do this, right? As a learner, you go do this and then post it in this place. If you post it, you're going to get a prize, right? So you got to have a little carrot for engagement. But that's one of the things that you can do and automate that. So when they're taking the course, it's automatically going to trigger an email or some type of communication for them to take action right away at that place. And all of that, I'm telling you, can be automated, and it's possible in your environment. So what we want to do is we want to just look at what's happening in the training itself. And then the next thing is, like, what are the follow-up pieces that you provide to them, right? So what happens is after the training, what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's the training that or the learning that the learner just did is transferred. So a lot of times we'll send out follow-up emails or follow-up communications maybe to the manager. Manager has some follow-up to do with the learner, whatever that looks like, right? And so what we want to do is we want to put that on autopilot so they finish the course and then they've got follow-up for a certain period of time afterwards. And this really is dependent on what the training is, right? But you really could drip out sequences all the way through, like forever, right? Here's some ways to transfer it back to your job. Here's some additional information. Once they have sort of mastered what you're teaching, you could continually train them on more advanced topics just through email, right? They don't necessarily have to go through another formal course, but you could drip out activities and lessons and videos and little micro learning activities to them in an automated sequence after they've taken the training. So be creative with this, but the follow-up is key because that's really what's going to transfer what they've learned back on the job, which is ultimately your goal, right? Is to create that knowledge transfer, that application transfer, allow them to practice in a safe environment so then they can go and apply it on their job and really get them connected back into their work. And so by creating those follow-up sequences, that allows you to do that. And again, all of that can be automated, so you just do it once and then you replicate it over time. All right, so that follow-up and nurturing is super critical as you do that. So I wanted to capture this for you so you had just a little bit of a taste for what it is like to actually automate your learning practice to not only benefit you, your learners, and your business as a whole. If you have questions about this or you want to connect with me and just have a conversation about how this could work in your particular workplace, there is a link at the bottom of this article. Give me a call, right? So it will send you to my calendar and we'll set up a time to talk. And I am happy to have this conversation. In fact, I love it. I'm super passionate about this. But I really believe that we can gain so much efficiency and leverage the one thing that we're always lacking, which is time, right? By creating and automating especially repetitive things that we're doing manually today. So give me a shout, and hopefully this was of value to you. If you have any comments or thoughts, give me a shout on as well. All right, take care.